everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. I'm here today with episode number 13 of our flea market style journal that we're making, traveler's notebook. And so let's jump into this spread. This is episode 13, which means this is our 11th page spread for this journal. So if I go into the center here, we're inside the card, and we're starting with a piece of coffee dyed or avocado dyed, whatever kind of dyed paper you have. I'm using black walnut dyed paper, which if you have access to black walnuts, you can easily make yourself. Please pardon my cabbage dyed fingers. I am cabbage dyeing paper today and definitely was too lazy to go downstairs and get gloves this morning. So blue fingers it is. Okay, so we're starting with a piece of, a dyed paper, coffee, whatever. And also you need a little page, preferably like an old, book with a little page. You can use a children's book for this as well. I just used a very old book that had some simple text on it, and it's going to be a little stitched on pocket on our first page. And this is your opportunity to use some of your vintage, photographs, so that we put a little bit of like vintage. I try to keep a bit of vintage in these books if I can because of the theme. So this is from September 1932. 11 months, Marg Coley Slack, Joanne Anders on the left and Belle Anders on the right. So these cute little kids, and that just pops right in here. Then on the inside, I recommend if you have some kind of fun fussy cuts, some kind of a fun kind of, I'd say like country feeling or rustic feeling kind of cut would be nice, a fussy cut out of a book. Or you can use what I've used, which are wallpaper decals. So like I found a whole package of these cows and I love them so much. They definitely remind me of like the primitive sort of style that a lot of people decorated their house in like the 90s. Like I definitely had some aunts who did that with their home. And then just a little fabric scrap that we're going to glue down. And then on the back, we're going to make a pocket from a torn piece of paper, which we will then ink and coffee spray to get some nice splotchiness. You'll need a Distress Oxide to get that nice splotchiness if you want. Otherwise, you can just literally coffee spray it, coffee dye it, doesn't matter. I used a fun paper that had these like these little holes at the bottom that the rings go through. So you don't have to, but you can, and it just kind of gives another little bit of a texture. Then we're going to tear out some kind of a poem or a book quote that we like, or a word snippet, and pop it on there. And then inside the pocket, we're going to use a couple fun things from your stash, like a vintage document. I'm using a paint sample, and this is one of those, cards that teach children how to read. So they are both blank on the back for writing space, and that's what I chose to pop in here. You could make ephemera for this if you want. I just recommend if you have things to use up, this is your opportunity, because you're making this kind of mixed up style of journal where there's certain things that tie it together, but you can be a little bit looser than having to work with a theme. So let's put this one aside, and I'll get the journal that we are making together here. And I did kind of pre-select some supplies. So here's our journal that we're making together. I'll set it aside. So first things first here is you've got your paper. This is a 8.5 by 11 sheet. And as I'm getting closer and closer to the center of the book, I'm removing a little bit of the width of the paper, because when you have paper, like papers that are kind of chunky, they've got a lot of ephemera on them, you will start to find that it pushes the center of the papers out. Let me just show that to you a little bit. So you can see in the center here how, this paper starts way back here at the spine, but this one's been pushed up here. Now, when we bind it, it is going to pull it all back. That's true, but you'll still be ever so slightly like ahead of the other papers. So I just take a bit off just for safe, reasons, so that I don't have to be stressing about that. So I think the easiest thing that we can do first as we look at this whole spread is to go ahead and make the pocket for the back page here. So this is just actually the cover of like a notebook that I bought the other day to harvest the paper out of, and I'm going to use that. So this is actually a good width. I've already sort of pre-measured. So we're going to tear. Now the back of this is a bit plasticky. You probably won't have this problem, but I'm just going to kind of peel some of this off so I can get a bit of a tear. So you're going to start high on one side and then go a little lower on the other, and that's what creates kind of a nice, like a little mountain sort of shape to your pocket. Okay, so now I'm going to ink up the whole pocket with some Distress Oxide, just like I did the other one. Just do a quick ink. Okay. Then I'll get a scrap piece of paper here. And I'm going to grab my coffee spray. So this is just like a stronger coffee with some alcohol added to keep it fresh. And I'm just going to do some dripping, just like that. And you probably will see the paper buckle a little bit, but you'll also see the Distress Oxide starting to do its thing. You're getting these fun circles. So yeah, it's fun. So now I'm just going to go ahead and dry this. You'll see that when I start to dry it, it's going to lay the paper down again. Keep going till we're dry, almost. Okay, so we're all nice and dry now. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is put my pocket down. I'm going to use art glitter glue, and I'm definitely reminded that I need to do a video about the glues that I use. So this glue is called art glitter glue. If you're not familiar with it, it is a white wet glue that dries clear. Well, it is called art glitter glue. It doesn't have any glitter in it at all. It's a glue that's used by a lot of paper artists, journalers, scrapbookers, etc., because it just dries very, very quickly. That's another thing to be aware of when you're using it, because you don't have a lot of time to fuss your papers around. You need to lay them down pretty quick and know what you're doing, because it dries so quickly. But that's also the benefit of it, because it's a very good glue. So the other thing about it, I use these Sugar Bell bottles. I know they look really ugly, all this old dried glue on them. I use Sugar Bell bottles, but for art glitter glue, you can actually buy a smaller bottle of it that comes with one of these metal tips and a pin. All that's doing is controlling the amount of glue that you're putting out for several reasons. One, you don't need much, but two, these glues are quite expensive. So the other thing I've done is I've used Fabri-Tac to attach a little magnet here that I can put my pin on so that I don't lose my pin. It's also gotten better since I started using a piece of ribbon, which I also Fabri-Tac'd around the top of like a head pin like this. One thing to note is that your pin can go rusty from being in the glue all the time, and that can get rust in your glue. You can avoid that by using a stainless steel pin, which you can buy. It doesn't really bother me, to be honest. I usually, when I'm using the glue, it's not visible anyway, so I'm not really concerned about it. Okay, so that being said, now the word snippet I used on the prototype here, he was quite pleased when he looked out and saw large drops of rain splashing in the pond. that came out of this book, The Tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher. And further in this series, I'm going to be using some of the images for this, probably for the next page spread. So this is another page that I pulled out of the book, and it says, he scrambled out to the first bank he came to, and he hopped home across the meadow with his mackintosh all in tatters. So I'm going to use that. I think that's a fun little bit of writing. I mean, you could choose to use a little poem if you wanted out of a book of verses. You could use just a fun word snippet if you like, you know, the one word snips, or like, you know, the sentences or the little verses that you can cut out of books. I'm just going to ink around the edges of the torn paper. So I've just torn it out kind of in a free form format here. Okay. So then before you glue it down, just make sure it fits. It does, so we're good. Where have I placed my glue book? That's interesting. Oh, here it is. Okay. So now I will just grab my glue stick. Glue stick I use typically like when it's just paper to paper that's not too thick that I'm gluing down. It's your most economical glue format, so it's good to use it whenever you can. It's great for collage. The glue stick I use, I don't know if anyone else can get this or not. It's an Office Mate glue stick. It's clear, acid-free, washable, and non-toxic, and it is very permanent. It's made by ACMI, Art and Creative Materials Institute certified, so it's like AP certified or something. I don't know where you can get this glue. Its stock number is 50003. Officemate.com. Maybe my husband works in industrial supply, so he actually gets all of my glue stick for me. Okay, so now we want to do the next thing. So let's go ahead and get our old piece of a book, our little book page here. So this is a fun little like index page. It's got some really fun things on it. So now I'm just going to decide what side I like better, what is on each side. And I like this one because it says sparrows bought for the use of the opera. So that's like a fun thing. So what I'm going to do with that is just choose a spot here, a little bit down, you know, from the top of the page, and then I'm going to stitch on my sewing machine sort of an L shape, this side and this side. So I'll go do my stitching and then I will come right back. Okay, so we are all stitched on now. I'm just going to trim my threads. Okay, so that's what we want to do on that page for now. Now we're going to flip to the inside. And it's time to play with this fun cow. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of measure as far as I can go, and then get a general idea. So about like the little bit of the udder is what I can include. So I'm just going to cover our cow here. And like I said, you can use any kind of a fun fussy cut out of a book for this glue down. This is just like a little fun surprise to come across. And I glue it right on top of my bottom row of that L of stitches. And then I just go to the back here and we're going to trim off the cow's bum. And there we go. So now we can do our last bit of gluing, which is this little bit of fabric. So just a little square of a fun fabric, maybe with some kind of a focal motif. This one, of course, has a flower, but just a little scrap. And I'm actually just going to use glue stick to glue this down. My experience with my particular glue stick is that it holds fabric down very well and very permanently in these kinds of small applications. I wouldn't use it for any kind of structural fabric, but for something like this, it's actually perfect. No need to stitch or anything. If you're a little insecure about using this, you can use fabric tack. That'll keep it down. Fabrifix, Fabri-Tac, or 3-in-1, all made by Beacon glues are really good for that. Okay. So we've got the inside done. We've got the outside done. All the things that attach to the page. Now we just need to stuff the journal. So for this journal, I've got this little old picture, these little girls on a blanket, September 1932, 11 months. Mary Coley Slack in the middle, Joanne Andrus on the left, Bill Anderson on the right. Oh, I didn't even see him over here. So I'm just going to pop that right in here. And then the next thing I want to do is just check the width of the image, if it sticks out of the journal or not when I have it inside the signature. So we're looking to go inside that card. And no, it's good. It's not sticking out. If it were sticking out, I would just say to trim the edge of that photo so it doesn't stick out. So that's done. And then just this bit here. So I know that these cards are a little too long. They stick out a bit. So I'm just going to trim the top off and pop that in there. And then I had only stuffed the prototype with like half of one of these, but I've since decided I want to use both pieces. And I'll just pop them in there. So we just have some fun, really domestic, but really, you know, recognizable and fun ephemera. So like, I think people, especially the people who aren't super familiar with journaling, who may buy one of these journals, will find that fun because it's something that they recognize in their day-to-day life, you know? So, okay, let's see how this, pardon me, this spread looks inside our journal. So we're going to go on inside the card here. And that's what we have. Love that. And then the center. And then back here. And we are right next to the card that flips, the flip out. So it's a lot of fun. Just kind of take a look at our flip out here. There it is. This one I think just, yeah, if it's just in there. So yeah, we have a nice spread in the journal, a nice busy kind of page. So that is today's spread. I will be back very soon with the next one. We're getting really close. I think, what are we? We're at, this is episode 13, so we have 11 papers, 11 spreads. So yeah, we're getting quite chunky, not super chunky yet. I don't imagine we're going to go over 15. That's usually a good size for the journal. So I will see you next time with the next layout. And until then, have a great day. If you haven't, by the way, seen these videos yet and you're interested in following along or making along, I have a playlist on my channel that is called the Flea Market Style Traveler's Notebook Make Along. So you can go back to the beginning and find out how to make the cover and just jump right on in. Okay, bye for now and thank you.